Discover Islam, Level 2, Chapter 14, Tafsir of Surah Al-Kawthar and Surah Al-Asr. In this lesson, we will study the explanation and commentary of two important chapters of the Holy Qur'an, Surah Al-Kawthar and Surah Al-Asr, Tafsir of Surah Al-Kawthar, the event of its revelation. This is the 108th Surah of the Holy Qur'an and has 4 ayat, including Bismillah. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful. Indeed, we have given you abundance. So pray to your Lord and sacrifice a camel. Indeed, it is your enemy who is without posterity. Surah Al-Kawthar was revealed regarding the words spoken by Al-Azwail about the Prophet. He referred to the Prophet as Abtar lineageless among the notables of Quraysh because Abdullah, the son of the Prophet, had died, and the Prophet had no sons. This surah comforted the Prophet by declaring that Allah had granted him abundant good, and it also promised him that his enemies would be the ones left without progeny. Virtues of the Surah Al-Kawthar. Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him. Whoever recites Surah Al-Kawthar in their daily prayers will drink from the pool of Kawthar on the day of resurrection and will accompany the Prophet under the tuba tree. The Holy Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny has said, those who recite Surah Al-Kawthar, Allah will quench their thirst from the rivers of paradise and reward them equal to the number of sacrifices made by the servants of Allah on the day of Eid al-Adha, as well as the sacrifices made by the people of the book. Tafsir. We have bestowed upon you abundant goodness. The entire content of this surah is addressed to the noble Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny, similar to Surah Ad-Duha and Surah Al-Inshirah. One of the primary objectives of these 3 surahs is to console His Eminence in the face of numerous painful incidents and the frequent slanders of the enemies. 4 surahs begin with the word Inna, indeed, we, Surah Al-Fath. Indeed, we have granted you a clear victory. Surah Na, indeed, we sent Noah to his people. Surah Al-Qadr, indeed, we sent it down during the night of decree. Surah Al-Kawthar, indeed, we have granted you Al-Kawthar. Al-Kawthar is an attribute derived from abundance, meaning plentiful goodness and blessings, and it is also used to describe generous individuals. Why did Allah use we instead of I in this surah? It is His tradition that usually God uses the singular pronouns, where He invites to monotheism, such as in Al-Mu'minun, verse 52, or Taha, verse 14. When God acts directly or speaks of His close relationship with creation, such as in Baqarah, verse 186, and Hijr, verse 49. However, He uses the plural pronouns in 2 occasions. When conveying the majesty of Him or the nobility of His bounties, such as the 4 surahs mentioned before. When God acts indirectly, such as with rain, which comes about through the process of sunlight, evaporation, and cloud formation, as in Al-Mu'minun, verse 18. What is meant by Al-Kawthar? A narration states that when this surah was revealed, the noble Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny ascended the pulpit and recited this surah. The companions asked, "What is it that God has granted you?" He replied, "A river in paradise, whiter than milk and clearer than crystal, bordered by domes of pearls and rubies." Another narration from Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him, tells us that Al-Kawthar is a river in paradise that God granted to His Prophet in compensation for his son Abdullah, who died during his lifetime. Some have said it refers to the pond of Kawthar, which belongs to the Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny, and from which believers will drink upon entering paradise. Some interpret it as prophethood, others as the Qur'an, some as the multitude of companions and followers, and others as the multitude of progeny, all emanating from his daughter Fatima al-Zahra, peace be upon her, growing to such an extent that they are beyond count, and will continue to represent the existence of the noble Prophet until the Day of Judgment. Some have also interpreted it as intercession, citing a narration from Imam Sadiq in this context. Fakhri Razi has mentioned 15 opinions regarding the interpretation of Al-Kawthar, but it appears that most of these are clear instances of this broad concept, As we have said, Al-Kawthar means abundant goodness and blessings. And we know that the Almighty has bestowed many great blessings upon the noble Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny, each of which we mentioned above being one clear instance of it, and there are many other instances that might be cited as contextual interpretations of the verse. All divine gifts to the noble Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny in all areas, even his victories in battles against enemies, and even the scholars of his nation who in every era and time safeguard the glowing torch of the Qur'an in Islam and take it to every corner of the world, are included in this abundant goodness. Tafsir. So pray to your Lord and sacrifice. We must not forget that this statement was made by God to his prophet when the signs of this abundant goodness had not yet appeared. A miraculous announcement about the near and distant future. A declaration of the authenticity of the noble prophet's peace be upon him and his progeny mission. This immense blessing and abundant goodness require immense gratitude, although the gratitude of the creation can never compensate for the blessings of the Creator. But the opportunity for gratitude itself is another blessing from him. Hence, he commands, now that this is so, pray only to your Lord and sacrifice. So pray to your Lord and sacrifice. Indeed, the giver of the blessings is he. Therefore, prayer and worship and sacrifice, which is also a form of worship, are meaningless if not dedicated to him, especially considering the concept of Rab, which connotes the continuity of blessings, governance, and lordship of the Almighty. In short, worship, whether in the form of prayer or sacrifice, is specifically for the Lord and benefactor, and that is exclusively the pure essence of God. This is in contrast to the practices of polytheists who prostrated and sacrificed for idols, while knowing their blessings came from God. However, the phrase for your Lord is a clear indication of the necessity of intention in acts of worship. Many interpreters believe that the intended prayer is the Eid al-Adha prayer, and the sacrifice made on that day, although apparently the verse has a broad meaning, even though the prayer and sacrifice of Eid are one of its clear instances. The use of and sacrifice, which is specific to slaughtering camels, might be due to the greater significance of camels among sacrifices, and the early Muslims had a particular fondness for them, and sacrificing a camel was not possible without altruism and sacrifice. Two other interpretations for this verse have been mentioned here. 1. The phrase in sacrifice may refer to facing the Qibla during prayer, as the root word means throat, and then Arabs used it to mean facing anything. Hence they say our homes face each other. 2. It may refer to raising the hands during takbir and bringing them in front of the throat and face. A narration states, when this surah was revealed, the noble Prophet, peace be upon him, and his progeny asked Jibreel, what is this sacrifice that my Lord has commanded me? Jibreel replied, it is not a sacrifice, but God commands you to raise your hands during takbir when entering prayer, as well as when you bow or rise from bowing, or prostrate, for the prayer of us and the angels in the 7 heavens is thus. And everything has its adornment, and the adornment of prayer is raising the hands during each takbir. A narration from Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him, regarding the interpretation of this verse showed with his blessed hand and said, it means to raise your hands in this way at the beginning of the prayer, so that the palms face the Qibla. However, the first interpretation is more suitable, as it negates the actions of polytheists who performed worship and sacrifice for others than God. Yet there is no objection to combining all the meanings and narrations that have reached on this subject, especially since there are numerous narrations in Shiite and Sunni books about raising hands during takbirs. Thus the verse has a comprehensive meaning that includes these as well. Tafsir. Indeed, it is your enemy who is without posterity. In the last verse of this surah, given the accusations the polytheist leaders made against him, it states, your enemy is the one cut off. Indeed, your enemy is the one cut off. Enemy, in the pattern of beating, means enmity, malevolence, and misbehavior. An enemy is someone who possesses this characteristic. It's noteworthy that, Cut off originally means an animal with a cut tail, and this expression was chosen by the enemies of Islam to degrade and insult, and the expression enemy reflects the reality that their enmity was mixed with cruelty and vileness. In fact, the Quran says, "This title belongs to you, not the noble Prophet peace be upon him and his progeny." On the other hand, as mentioned in the occasion of revelation of the surah, the Quraysh were expecting the death of the Prophet peace be upon him and his progeny and the elimination of Islam because they claimed he was without progeny. The Quran states, "You are not without progeny. Your enemies are the ones without progeny." Points to consider: Fatima peace be upon her and Kawthar. We mentioned that Kawthar has a comprehensive and broad meaning, which is abundant and plentiful goodness, and its instances are numerous. But many prominent Shiite scholars consider one of the clearest instances to be the noble existence of Fatima al-Zahra peace be upon her, as the occasion of the revelation of the verse says. They accuse the noble Prophet peace be upon him and his progeny of being without progeny. The Quran, while denying their statement, says, "We have given you Kawthar." This expression suggests that this abundant goodness is Fatima al-Zahra peace be upon her, for the progeny and lineage of the Prophet peace be upon him, and his progeny spread throughout the world through this noble daughter, a lineage that not only were the physical progeny of the Prophet, but also preserved his religion and all the values of Islam and conveyed them to future generations. Not only the infallible imams of the household peace be upon them who are accounted for separately, but thousands of descendants of Fatima peace be upon her spread throughout the world, among whom were great scholars, writers, jurists, narrators, esteemed interpreters, and great commanders who with altruism and sacrifice endeavored to preserve the religion of Islam. Here we encounter an interesting discussion from Fakhr Razi, who, among various interpretations of Kawthar, states, "The third opinion is that this surah was revealed in response to those who criticized the absence of offspring for the noble Prophet peace be upon him and his progeny. Thus the meaning of the surah is that God will give him a progeny that will last through time. See how many from the household were martyred, yet the world is full of them. This while from the Banu Umayyah, who were enemies of Islam, no notable person remains in the world. Then observe and see how many great scholars are among them, like Bakir, Sadiq, Reza, Nafs Zakiya, and others." Points to consider: the miracle of this surah. This surah indeed contains three great prophecies. On one hand, it promises the bestowal of abundant goodness to the Prophet foretold in the past tense, possibly as a certain future event presented in past tense form. And this abundant goodness includes all the victories and successes that later befell the noble Prophet peace be upon him and his progeny, which at the time of the revelation of this surah in Makkah were unforeseeable. On the other hand, it announces that the Prophet peace be upon him and his progeny will not be without progeny, but rather his lineage will be abundantly present in the world. On the third front, it foretells that his enemies will be the ones cut off, a prophecy that was fulfilled. And so thoroughly were his enemies eradicated that today no trace of them remains, while factions like Banu Umayyah and Banu Abbas, who opposed the Prophet peace be upon him and his progeny and his children, once had such numerous families and progeny that they were innumerable. But today, if anything of them remains, they are unrecognized. Tafsir of Surah Al-Asr, Virtues of the Surah. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. By the time, indeed, mankind is at a loss, except those who believe and do righteous deeds and advise each other to truth and enjoin one another to patience. From Sunni sources, it is reported that this surah holds a virtue regarding Imam Ali peace be upon him. This surah was so important and valuable among the companions of the Prophet Muhammad peace and blessings be upon him and his family that whenever they met, they would not part from each other until they had recited Surah Azar to one another. It has been stated, "Whoever recites Surah Azar in recommended prayers, God will illuminate and brighten his face and enlighten his eyes on the day of judgment, leading him into paradise." It is transmitted from the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him and his family, that whoever recites this surah, the end of his affairs will be patience and perseverance, and he will be resurrected on the day of judgment with the companions of truth. It is said that if Surah Al-Asr is recited over someone who has a fever, the fever will subside. If it is recited over someone who is depressed, it will relieve their depression. Tafsir. In the name of Allah. By the time. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate. In the name of God, meaning I imbue my deeds with divine significance. I commit myself to Him. When anonymous people are asked, "Who are you?" they reply, "I am a relative of so-and-so," because so-and-so is an important figure. Thus they affiliate themselves with him for protection. In the name of Allah means I commit myself to God, for no one but God can protect anyone. By the time, the Arabic literature uses wa as an oath. Allah is God, but when we say wallah, it means I swear by God. Shams means sun, but when we say wal shams, it means I swear by the sun. By the time is an oath by time. God has sworn by all moments of time, by the dawn, by the morning, by the mid-morning, by the day, by the time, by the night. The term ASR originally means to squeeze or compress, and subsequently it has been applied to the time of ASR afternoon, because the day's plans and activities become condensed and compressed during this period. Over time, the word has also come to denote time in the absolute sense and significant historical eras or periods of time, such as the era of the emergence of Islam and the rise of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him and his family, among others. Why has God sworn by time? What else could God swear by? When we swear by great things, by God, by Allah, by the Qur'an, by your life, and anything important to us. But nothing is important before God. So sometimes He swears by the sun, which can't be looked at directly. Sometimes He says, by the fig and the olive, which costs a few pounds per kilogram. How can a fig compare to the sun? Why does God sometimes swear by something small and sometimes by something great? The answer is that for God, nothing is big or small. The camera, whether it captures a king or a beggar, doesn't discriminate. A head is just a head, big or small to us, but straw and mountains are the same to God. Now, figs have properties that no other fruit has. It's the only fruit that comes with its leaf, whereas all other fruits grow their leaves first, then the fruit, though other fruits may have special merits. Sometimes God swears by earthly things, by the fig, the olive, the Mount Sinai, and this secure city, sometimes by heavenly things. It's clear that heaven and earth are the same to God. The fig and the sun are the same to Him. In Surah Al-Asr, God has sworn by the time. Now is this the afternoon? Maybe the era of the Prophet, peace be upon him? Maybe the era of the appearance of Imam Mahdi, may God hasten his return. Maybe just an era. They say the era of ignorance. All kinds of meanings can be derived from certain verses like sugar. All kinds of sweets can be made from it. By the time, swearing by time. Tafsir. Indeed, mankind is at a loss. Humans incur losses. There's a difference between loss and damage. It's not stated, indeed, mankind is in damage. Damage is where the rate goes down. You buy a carpet for 100 pounds, it becomes 80 pounds, but the carpet still exists. But if the capital is lost, they say it's a loss, like an ice seller who goes out to sell ice, and his ice melts, the capital has melted. The ice seller doesn't say I suffered damage. He says I suffered a loss. Doesn't say existence becomes cheaper, says existence melts. Indeed, mankind is at a loss, meaning humanity is melting. You, from yesterday to today, have melted for 24 hours. Therefore, grandfathers are smaller because there's little left of their lifespan. Nothing is significant. The children who are just born, they are grandfathers. By time, mankind melts. Tafsir. except those who believe and do righteous deeds. Humans definitely incur losses unless those who have faith and their deeds are commendable. Ramadan, the night of destiny, and time pass, the one with commendable deeds is honored. Indeed, believing people are intellectuals. Careless people are fools, with a very logical and natural expression. Some think if they don't pray, their hair unkempt, consume usury, are carefree without constraints. They live comfortably and don't care about forbidden or obligatory things. They think these people are very merry. No, these are very foolish, with a simple expression that even 5-year-olds would say, "You're right, these are foolish, not intelligent." Imagine 200 people want to go on a long trip. 100 say, "Sir, let's take some needful things with us, like food, clothes, and medicine, etc." And the other one, 0 laugh out loud, carefree, we travel this long distance empty-handed. After all, on this journey, there is either danger and need, or there isn't. Imam Reza, peace be upon him, said, "Speak to a person without religion in such a way that he has no choice but to say you are right, meaning the person is in a dead end. If there was no danger, the person who takes needful things with him didn't suffer. But if there was danger, what would that unfortunate, empty-handed person do? We say there is a day of judgment. Imam Ridha, peace be upon him, said, if there was no day of judgment, we didn't suffer. But if there was, which there is for 1,001 reasons, what would that carefree person do? People who don't listen to forbidden or permissible are foolish, meaning if they were intelligent, they would think that an intelligent person, if he goes on a trip, would take a rope and flashlight with him. God gave us thousands of pounds and asks us to pay just 20% out of the net savings as a khums. Now, if there wasn't a day of judgment, we kept or spent all money for our own. Summer has 11 Fridays. Take 1 Friday to take the children of the poor neighbors out for fun. Therefore, the intelligent person says, it's not possible not to have a religion. A religious person never suffers, except for those who believe and do righteous deeds. Faith is not separate from action. In the Quran, wherever those who believe is mentioned and do righteous deeds is also mentioned. Imam Sadiq, peace be upon him, said in his interpretation of this surah, those who have believed means those who have believed in the guardianship wilaya of Imam Ali, peace be upon him. Indeed, those who believe and do righteous deeds, the most merciful will endear them to others. Maryam /96. Someone who both has faith and performs virtuous actions finds a place of love in people's hearts through God. To bring those who believe and do righteous deeds out of darkness into the light. At Talaq /11. If someone is a person of faith and action, they will not be confused in a dead end. The Lord will guide them. Indeed, those who believe and do righteous deeds, their Lord will guide them because of their faith. Yunus /9. Some children have strong faith, meaning they truly believe, but they might repeat a grade or always pray on time. That this is not enough. Some children excel in studies but are negligent about prayer. This is also not sufficient. Both aspects must go hand in hand. They are like two wings. Faith without action or action without faith is incomplete. There are people who were inventors and served society but did not have faith. These are of two kinds. Someone who is unaware and does not have faith, which is an easier case. They say, "Sir, I did not hear about it." Sometimes they are aware and understand, yet they choose to be stubborn. The reward of their services is soured by the sin of their obstinacy, tafsir, and advise each other to truth and patience. Tawasa originates from the term tawasa, which means for some to advise or exhort each other, and haq means truth or conformity to reality. In the book Faces of the Quran, 12 meanings and usages of this word in the Quran are mentioned, such as God, the Quran, Islam, monotheism, justice, honesty, being evident, being obligatory, and others like these. But all of them return to the root mentioned above. Nevertheless, the phrase tawasa bil haq has a very broad meaning that includes both commanding good and forbidding evil, as well as educating the ignorant, alerting the heedless, and promoting and propagating faith and righteous action. It is obvious that those who advise each other towards truth must themselves be advocates and practitioners of it. The fourth principle involves the issue of patience, sabr, and perseverance, and advising each other towards it. Because after the matter of knowledge and awareness, everyone faces obstacles at every step in the path of action. Without endurance and patience, one cannot vindicate the truth, perform righteous deeds, or preserve their faith. Indeed, establishing the truth, enforcing the truth, and fulfilling the truth in society is only possible with a collective movement, resolution, and standing firm against obstacles. Patience here also has a broad and extensive meaning that includes patience in obedience, patience against the impulses of sin, and patience in the face of misfortunes, losses of forces, resources, and gains. Considering what has been mentioned above about these four principles, which indeed form the most comprehensive program for the life and happiness of humans, it becomes clear why it is narrated that when the companions of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his family met each other, before parting, they would recite Surah Al-Asr and remind themselves of the profound content of this short surah. Then they would bid each other farewell and go about their tasks. And truly, if Muslims today implement these four principles in their personal and social lives, their problems and disorders will be solved, their backwardness compensated, their weaknesses and defeats turned into victory, and the evil of the worst in the world will be cut off from them.